it not? Anyway, we're going to talk about all of that here at Talk. Claire Pearsall, as I say, is with us. Fascinating to talk to the farmer we just spoke to.
Yeah.
Politics today, news today, is very much, there's an awful lot of stuff, very much at home. We're talking about, freedom of speech, police turning up, with outside journalists' doorsteps, question them about tweets and things. Two-tier policing, failing to see a prosecution of those two brothers who, on video, are quite clearly seen assaulting 3 police officers, including a woman PC being punched repeatedly in the face at Manchester Airport in July. Reform UK doing a private prosecution of that. They've got the funding for it. CPS, for some reason, not getting on with the job. But yeah, let's make sure that 16-year-olds are sent to, behind bars in youth detention centres for posting something on TikTok or YouTube about the Southport riots. We live in a mad world at home. We've got the farmers, a big protest happening tomorrow. We've got the problems with migration. We've got all of this going on, and yet so much focus is what's going on overseas, whether it's in Ukraine, whether it's the G20 summit, and what's the threat from China, the threat from Russia to not just Ukraine but to us as well. Prime ministers who jet around love doing that, don't they? Because the red carpet's rolled out. Keir Starmer on his 15th trip abroad since he's become Prime Minister. They love doing this, don't they? All prime ministers of all political hues get a big kick out of being on the world stage, being, jetting in and red carpet and all of that. Do they ever achieve anything at any of these meetings?
I don't think they really do, and I think some of it is soft power. I think the G20 is really important. COP, not so much. Don't know why we had to send 470 delegates to a climate conference.
If you've not seen this, this isn't 470 Brits. This is the government.
Exactly. So, as much as you want to cut down on your emissions, and Ed Miliband wants to put a windmill up on every green piece of land there is, they're quite happy to jet across to something that's going to make absolutely no difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I think that G20, there's a real place for that, and it is the only time that you can really get round a table and speak. But any time you go away with a minister abroad, which I've done, you end up spending a lot of time transporting between different places and get very little achieved in between.
A lot of it's done by officials beforehand, isn't it? So this private meeting that Keir Starmer's having, a one-on-one private meeting with President Xi Jinping at the G20 summit in Brazil, should Britain be cozying up to China is the question we're asking. Do get in touch, 0344 499 1000. So we'll get to calls very quickly on that. But should we be, or is that just a necessary evil? You have to deal with these people, you haven't got a choice.
I think you have to deal with them. You don't have to like another world leader, but you are on the same stage and you have to have a relationship. And there are interesting points that he could raise: Uyghurs, Hong Kong nationals, human rights abuse, murder, COVID, as you've mentioned previously. Why not have those kind of conversations? But do we think that Keir Starmer is really going to go there and put all those issues on the table?
Well, that's it. You're having a meeting with him because basically we are completely economically in hock to China. I mean, they're providing pretty much everything in terms of our investments, funding for universities, huge number of Chinese students, funding our university system, huge amount of investment, and they're providing pretty much every good we purchase, and of course with this push for the insane 2030 clean electricity plan from Ed Miliband and others, supplying all our solar panels and wind turbines, and they have of course cornered the market in all the rare earth metals because no one in the West thought that was something that they should try and stop and deal with China. We are going to wake up to the threat of China at some point in the next few years, and that is going to be a very, very, very scary moment.
And it's too late. I mean, you were talking earlier about China have been planning things for 40 years or so. Well, a friend of mine, Bruce, has just pointed out to me that they also have been got land on lease in Ukraine, and they've also bought up land in Australia and places like New Zealand. So you can kind of see where this is going.
They bought up half of London, along with the Middle East. They bought up half of London.
And I worry for our farmland, should farmers have to sell because they can't afford this.
I worry they bought up our politicians. I'm genuinely serious. I find it extraordinary that we've got sanctions from China on Tory MPs, Ian Duncan-Smith, Tom Tugendhat and others. We've got massive cyber hacking, massive spying issues. I mean, off the scale. and the treatment of the people in Hong Kong, who, by the way, Britain has still got a duty of care towards.
Yeah.
The treatment of the Uyghurs. Keir Starmer's supposed to be a human rights lawyer. That'll be barely mentioned. I mean, they'll mention it because they have to go through that. But I mean, I think we are in some very difficult circumstances, and I still want to know when I'm getting my reparations for 2 years of my life being stolen away from me with the lockdowns and all the madness as a result of the COVID pandemic, which the Chinese created in a lab in Wuhan. Yes, they did, and then covered up, and as a result, it spread around the world. I mean, I'm sorry, but I want my reparations, please.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? To keep us all indoors, shut down an economy for something.
I still blame my government for their reaction, but nevertheless,
that's a different conversation.
But why is no one talking about this COVID reparations?
Well, they're too scared, aren't they? It's very easy to look at reparations if it's the British having to wring their hands and pretend they're sorry about something.
Yeah, I guess they're the wrong colour. You have to be white, don't you? It's just quite bizarre, isn't it? Let's go to a couple of calls on this because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do get in touch 0344 499 1000. Bob is on the line. He's in Lancashire. Hello, Bob.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Oh, good late night for Bob on a Sunday night. I love that. I do that all the time. Bob, what do you want to say?
Well, you've covered that many subjects there before.
I know.
But if you just think about how long the farmers have been thinking things in succession, how long it's been planning to be able to calm the farms down, and I think Starmer should be over here listening to the farmers. On Saturday, he sneaked out the back door at London. Gareth Wynne-Jones was very annoyed about that, and I think he should make some time tomorrow to come and speak to us. A lot of the Labour seats in the countryside have been gained by Labour politicians and MPs. And I tried talking to my MP after it took me 6 months. Well, ever since he's been elected, I only managed to speak to him last Thursday, and he's not interested.
And you're a farmer yourself?
Yes, I do farm, but also I deal in machinery and equipment, and it's going to have a massive knock-on effect. There's 6 machinery dealers gone bust in the last 2 or 3 months, and one chapter unfortunately committed suicide, which is very sad. And it's going to have a knock-on effect to the auction marts, the produce, wagons catching all the stuff. And I tried to explain what I think is going to happen. I think people's going to keep not growing crops, they'll be growing, for argument's sake, wild bird seed and flowers and different things on the land, and just claiming and not bother growing anything. And it's going to demoralise all the country all the way down the line, right from the top to the bottom. And
people just don't realise it. And again, I think a lot of Labour, like a lot of us in the media, like me, we're townies. We don't understand the root of the food all the way to our plates. So as you're concerned, basically, he needs to be back here dealing with domestic issues, priorities like that, and not on the world stage jetting around.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. I can't do it every time. Well, thanks for letting me be on this show and talk to you. Thank you very much.
No, really. Sorry, that line went a bit funny. Really appreciate your call, Bob. Thank you very much. To see you at the protest tomorrow, no doubt. Just some news in the last 10 minutes or so. Christopher Bell, aged 45, has pleaded guilty at Newcastle Crown Court to being the owner of a dangerously out-of-control XL bully dog, which killed his neighbour Ian Langley in Shiny Row near Sunderland last October. One of those many, many cases where we see out-of-control XL bully dogs and similar dogs attacking people. I think people are absolutely stark, staring insane to have these dogs anywhere. And it's one thing, when they got them in, we've seen a baby attacked recently, this type of dog. Again, it's never a Labrador, is it? It's never a collie or a Labrador. Whenever there's one of these stories, babies, children being mauled, grown men being mauled to death, you cannot fight these animals off. Whenever you see these stories and your heart goes out to them, but you look at the people and go, what were you thinking? Because it's never a Chihuahua or a poodle either. You know exactly which of 2 or 3 dogs is it going to be. Why would you have these things in your house? Why are we allowing these animals anywhere in this country? You may as well have a sodding wolf in your house, for God's sake. But it just makes me so angry that we don't... You can deal with this. You can deal with it like that. I'm sorry, and I love dogs, and I completely get that. It's the problem is often the owner, not the dog. Blah blah blah. But at the end of the day,
it's not going to stop.
But if your crocodile kills someone, everyone understands why, don't they? You know what I mean. This is not complicated stuff. It really isn't. But there we are. Let it go. I won't let it go. Let's talk back about Ukraine, though. Front page, a lot of the papers today. Joe Biden authorising Ukraine to use long-range missiles inside Russia. We've got. We know that Starmer, following on from Tory MPs, Tory Prime Ministers repeatedly, and of course Macron of France, also very keen to allow Ukraine to use their long-range weaponry, these Storm Shadow missiles, but crucially they involve an American sort of radar or a system that they've got a veto, so America has to agree for us to be able to give our allow our weapons to be used long range, where they could actually strike in the heart of Russia. Do you think Donald Trump Jr., as ghastly as he is, little mini-me, is right that actually Biden's trying to start World War III before the new president goes into office in January?
Normally I dismiss anything that Junior says. However,
as does his dad, I think.
Yes. However, I think he might have a little bit of a point. Really interesting timing. Biden could have done this way before the election.
Yeah, but that's because he knew perfectly well that would not have gone down very well.
But this feels very much, this is a setup for Donald Trump. Now, I don't know if Biden has the capacity to think like that or if it's just a coincidence that it's happened now. But we need to have the conversation. We need to look at what Ukraine needs from the US and from us in Europe. And if it's brought that conversation forward, then that's got to be a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, that is something, isn't it? Can I also just talk to you about this Congolese paedophile? I mean, it's... Again, you laugh the same way I do. How can we find... But it is absolutely mind-blowing that a man from the Democratic Republic of Congo... So whenever it's called a democratic country, it's always the bad one. That's not... If you've got the word democratic in your name of your country, never is. Like Democratic Republic of Germany wasn't the democratic one. If you always feel... if you feel the need to say it out loud, isn't. But he came to this country, he sexually assaults his stepdaughter and 2 other children. He's got 3 kids of his own who he's not been accused of sexually assaulting. He served 3 years behind bars. We're talking about the most vicious, awful, horrific sexual abuse of minors. He's been convicted. Why he only served 3 years? Again, another madness of our so-called justice system. And then he's going to be deported, because if you get charged with these crimes, you're supposed to be deported. But under European Convention on Human Rights, he has a right to a family life, and his wife and children are here, and so he's won an appeal at a tribunal to not be deported back to Congo. Yeah. Because I'm saying this out loud, and I'm thinking this is the sort of thing that you would expect to be sort of a satirical, sort of a dystopian future. We can't deport foreign paedophiles from our country. What the beep, 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 beep is going on?
What is also interesting is the use of his right to a family life. Well, the children that he abused, where are those rights?
But also, he didn't have a right to a family life when he was in prison.
No, he didn't. And the courts don't need to use that as in its whole, because there is a clause within the ECHR document about right to a family life, which says unless it goes against the public good and public safety, or words to that effect. I can't remember it entirely.
There's virtually those words. Yeah.
So that could have been used again, and
was designed to be used. But this is it. It's not necessarily what's in the legislation. Like, it hasn't always been a problem. No, because it's how activists, judges interpret it. I mean, that's the issue we've got with everything we're dealing with illegal migrants, with appeals of this sort.
Yeah, and it does need to go and be appealed. This person needs to leave the country. I would quite happily put him on a plane myself and send him back whence he came.
No, but there'll be a bunch of liberal bleeding hearters who'll be on the same EasyJet flight.
Should the pair of us...
I don't know if EasyJet fly to Congo. Probably.
A-Jet.
Probably. But, going, oh no, he looks really nice. Do you think I think we should keep him here because he doesn't want to leave and he's in handcuffs.
Do you think if you and I turned up, though, they would have any truck with us? Because I think between the pair of us, we could get him on that plane and get rid of the lefties at the same time.
I absolutely think that you and I could sort that out. Your husband any moment now is going to message you going, you two are scaring me again. But I'm pretty sure, I think, I would love to know how many of the bleeding hearters who really do think we should have open borders and that, come in, the water's lovely, everyone should stay, nonsense. How many of them think that a man from the Democratic Republic of Congo who has come here, who has sexually abused children, who's served time, who's convicted, should be allowed to stay here? I mean, hey, by the way, he can have his family life. He can just have it in the country he comes from.
Absolutely. Would all of these lefties that are wringing their hands, would they like him to live next door to them and their children?
Absolutely. Why don't you let him babysit your kids?
If
That's always. If you're so happy about this guy staying in this country, let him live next door to you. Bring him over and let him babysit your kids. Come on, then. You feel so strongly about it. Why don't you just put your money, put your children's safety where your words are? Why don't you? And actually, you know, don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. Let him look after your kids and tell us how safe he is to be in this country. And he's going to be here because of lunatics. Lunatics. Our judicial system is and tribunal system, it is so deeply damaged. And this is why I was supporting the election of Donald Trump, because I want a little bit of that action here. We need a disruptor. We need someone who's not scared of being not liked by the Guardian and the BBC and the chattering classes, who doesn't care about dinner parties in Islington and will do the stuff that is necessary to restore proper criminal justice system in this country, proper values, and restore, you know, what British people want. And genuinely, if you really are insane enough to think this man has a right to stay in this country, how on earth have you got a role in our tribunal or judiciary system?
But also, such a short prison sentence as well. 3 years doesn't go anywhere near punishment for the crime that he committed.
Given longer than that for writing stuff on Facebook in the last few months.
Yeah. Kids filming things on TikTok and other platforms, they're getting arrested at the age of 16 and going away for 18 months.
I think we need a complete overhaul of this.
I think we do. I think it is absolutely right for looking at the sentencing guidelines.
Absolutely. Look, I want to get to more of your calls. So much more to talk about. One thing we haven't got to yet is Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor. Apparently, her CV's been, should we say, padded out a little. I wonder how long she gets to stay in her job. Because I'm of the view that if you lie on your CV about if you lie on your CV, should you be allowed to stay in your job? Didn't you get it under false pretences? I mean,
it's quite a big lie as well. It's not even
about whether she was an economist or not an economist at Halifax or not. Yeah.
I mean, normally that's not kind of the thing that you would forget.
I'm pretty sure I know what my job was at every single job, whether it was stuffing envelopes, whether it was working in a burger takeaway, which I actually did do. Hi, Kamala Harris. But I can remember it. I mean, God, you can remember these. You might not. Oh God, what year? What was it? I mean, when you get to my age, was it 2004 or was it 20? I mean, I've no idea.
But you remember the job that you had,
and other people might remember you. And isn't it funny?
Quite
a lot of the jobs she claims she did, no one can seem to quite remember.
No, seem to sort of
become Chancellor of the country under false pretences. I mean, I'm just wondering. I'm just thinking, you or me, we'd probably be facing the sack for that, wouldn't we? By the way, if anyone is asking here, I never claimed to have passed my 100 words per minute shorthand test. I said I had done 100 words per minute shorthand, which I did once.
It's a bit like my 60 words a minute touch typing.
Have you got? Yeah, we've all got that.
I did do that.
Wink, wink, everybody.